Switching gears a little bit, and focusing on your career and entrepreneurial journey. If I'm not mistaken, you took your company, you co-founded, you founded your company, took it public on Nasdaq in 1987, Exelon, and also you're the first Indian American to have founded a company and taken it public. How did you make that happen? I mean, you were clearly a trailblazer. How did that happen?
Yeah. So I'm clearly engineer, a hardcore engineer. I was, in the valley here, working as a hardware engineer, from 1971 through 1981. 10 plus years. Before that, I worked in Florida and New Jersey. And so I was a hardcore engineer, but Silicon Valley, at that time had become the hotbed of entrepreneurs, engineers turning into entrepreneurs. Intel was the first, one of the first ones, and so I started to wonder, why not me? Why not me? Why can't I be an entrepreneur? So there was a guy by the name of David Jackson, who worked for me. And he left to start a company. I saw in the press, David Jackson had become a founder of a company called Altos Computer. Altos was the original hot pots, ZAT, CPM machine. And I said, David worked for me. And by the way, David was also an immigrant, from England, but immigrant. And he had been here, even less than I had been. And one day I said, if David Jackson can do it, why can't I do it? I trained David Jackson. And so that was the thing which ate at me. Why not me? Why can't I do it? So I got destabilized as a person, and of course, I just couldn't get the idea out of my head, and so I finally got the permission from my wife, and she said, "You do whatever you want to do, as long as the children don't suffer, I am fine." And the children won't suffer, and so that was in 1982.
Yeah.
And if you look back to 1982, the world had changed. In fall of 81, September of 81, IBM PC was introduced. And the mainframe computers were going to become, be replaced by smaller computers, and this notion of a distributed computing was being talked about. And so we said, these guys will need networking. So why don't we start to offer networking for all sorts of computers? And so that's where the idea came from. We will become the networking specialist to offer networking of all sorts of computers. And I was a hardcore engineer. I was able to very quickly design Ethernet boards. Ethernet specs were published by Intel, Digital, and Xerox. And they were published also in fall of 81, with the announcement that chips will be available in 3 to 4 years to make the Ethernet network possible. But I didn't have to wait for the chips. I was able to build a compact design, and tested it, based upon the specs that they are published, and we built a network, and it worked. And so we sold about 1 million of those boards before the chips are available.
Yeah, that's great. So Kanwal, I just follow up on that is, you obviously have had a long and storied career in Silicon Valley. You've contributed, greatly, immensely to the area of networking and other areas. You've been on the boards of many companies. I know you work with many famous Silicon Valley entrepreneurs and executives. Is there anyone that particularly stands out in your interactions, or any particular individual, or long-standing interactions, or any incidents that stands out that you can share with us?
Well, there weren't many Indians ahead of me, right? Yeah. Vinod Khosla was sort of at the same time as I was, and Subhash Patil followed by a year or two, and Prabhu Doyle and all that. So there was no role models for me. There were nobody to look up to. So as I mentioned before, Indians were not entrepreneurs, and they were not seen as entrepreneurs. And so I don't have too many stories, but I have a lot of mentees who have done extremely well. B.B. Jagdish, Raju Reddy, K.B. Chandrasekhar come to mind. But I invested, now I have invested in almost 200 companies. I've been on the board of, I have been on the board of over 50 companies.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I've been public company CEO 3 times.